The bell above the shop door rang with a thin metallic clink, and the shopkeeper froze over his ledger. He knew that sound at this hour. No one else came so late. The moneylender stepped inside without haste, brushing dust from his sleeves as if he owned the air itself. The shop smelled of ink, dried soap and stale worry. Outside, the evening had dimmed to a blue that made the windows look like tarnished mirrors. "Master Halim," the moneylender said, voice soft like oil on a hinge, "have you considered my last letter?" He glanced around the empty counters, glass jars, folded cloth, small boxes stacked like promises. The shopkeeper swallowed. "I have," he answered, keeping his hands on the ledger so the tremor wouldn't show. "Business has been slow," he nearly added, but honest, then thought better of it. The moneylender walked the aisle as though he were inspecting livestock. "Debts are not like winter," he murmured. "They do not pass when the weather turns. They require tending." He stopped at the counter, laying 2 fingers upon it. "You owe a sum that would choke a richer man. I am, however, merciful when I see opportunity." His eyes drifted to the doorway that led to the back rooms. The shopkeeper heard the unspoken word and felt heat in his face. "My daughter is not a bargaining chip," he said too quickly. The moneylender smiled, not kindly. "Who said bargain? I propose a remedy, a union. You have something of value, I have relief to offer. You are drowning, I am a boat." He leaned in. "Let us speak plainly. If your daughter marries me, your debt dissolves." Silence crowded the room. The shopkeeper's jaw worked, but words would not form. "She is young," he managed at last, "and you—" The moneylender's smile thinned. "And I am solvent." He produced a small velvet pouch from his coat, letting it dangle so the drawstrings clicked against a brass button. "We can drape fairness over this if you like. A game of chance. 2 stones, 1 white, 1 black. She draws. Fate decides." "Fate?" the shopkeeper echoed, bitterness creeping into his voice. "It's not fate you seek, it's cover." The moneylender shrugged, unbothered. "Call it what you please. By morning, your creditors will circle. By noon, your shelves will be seized. By sundown, your name will be a cautionary tale. Or," he set the velvet pouch on the counter with a soft tap, "you can choose the narrow bridge that leads to safety." The shopkeeper straightened, surprised to find strength in his spine. "If I consent, it is only because you have cornered me," he said. "Do not mistake coercion for consent." The moneylender tilted his head. "You mistake the world for a court," he replied. "It is a scale. Weight is what matters. Choose by dawn. Meet me in your garden. There where the path is strewn with pebbles, we will let the stones speak." He turned toward the door. "If I refuse?" the shopkeeper asked, voice thin. The moneylender paused, one hand on the latch. "Then I collect what is owed. I will not relish it. I will merely do it." He opened the door. The bell clinked, and a draught of night lifted the ledger's corner. "Sleep, Master Halim," he said over his shoulder. "It may be your last as a shopkeeper." The door shut. The shopkeeper remained still for a long time, listening to the faint scrape of the sign outside as the wind brushed it. He imagined his daughter's laughter from years ago, when debts were only numbers and future days were limitless. He imagined her face if he told her the offer, no, the trap. He looked down at his hands and found they were clenched. He forced them open. He blew out the lamps one by one until the shop was a dark outline of itself. In the muted glass he caught a wavering reflection, a man who had bartered away too many mornings for small, survivable evenings. He lifted the ledger, closed it gently, and whispered to the shadows, "Not fate, not yet." Then he took the back corridor toward the living quarters, where his daughter's door was a thin plank between him and the choice he feared to make. That night, though he lay upon his bed, sleep would not come to the shopkeeper. Shadows traced across the ceiling like ink spilled over paper, pressing down upon him with suffocating weight. Every breath felt heavier than the last, and in the stillness he could almost hear the moneylender's voice whispering, "By dawn choose." A desperate part of him clung to foolish possibilities. Perhaps he could sell all his goods at a loss, or beg another merchant for a loan at a ruinous rate. But deep down he knew such efforts would only delay the inevitable. The moneylender's reach was long, and the town itself seemed to serve as his web. "My daughter," he whispered into the darkness. His throat closed around the words. He pictured the brightness in her eyes, the laughter she carried with her since childhood. After her mother's death, he had poured every ounce of love into her life. How could he now consider sacrificing her future to mend his own failures? The thought was a blade twisting inside him, and yet desperation forced him to weigh the impossible. What of the shop? He thought bitterly. This store was not only their livelihood, but also his father's legacy. He remembered the old brass scales, how carefully he had weighed goods to earn trust from his neighbors. If he lost that trust, he would lose not only bread but honor itself. Another voice rose in him, harsh and relentless. "Honor or your daughter's life." To protect his pride, would he doom her to misery? He threw off the blanket and began pacing the room. His footsteps fell like drumbeats, each one echoing the storm within. His heart pounded as though seeking an escape of its own. At the window he paused. The street below lay washed in silver moonlight, its cobblestones silent, its lamps extinguished. The wind swept through like a ghost, carrying a sound that reminded him of the moneylender's laugh. His fists clenched. "I would rather face ruin than see that vile man stand beside her," he swore inwardly. But then the cold truth struck him. Ruin here meant more than hunger. Debtors were driven out or imprisoned. He turned to the old wooden chest in the corner. Inside lay a faded cloth, a few yellowed letters, and drawings his daughter had made as a child. One picture showed a smiling father and daughter beneath a great sun, hand in hand. His vision blurred with tears. He traced the childish lines with trembling fingers. "I owe you a brighter future," he murmured. Hours passed like centuries. Every imagined solution collapsed into another wall. Every path circled back to the moneylender's shadow. Finally, he sank into a chair, pressing his face into his hands. "My pride, my mistakes, yet she must not pay the price." Behind his closed eyes, her face appeared again, and with it a flicker of courage. A decision stirred within him. He could not bear the weight of silence any longer. He would tell her the truth, however cruel. Perhaps she would offer wisdom, or at the very least he would not face this burden alone. Even chains feel lighter when they are shared. As the first light of dawn filtered through the shutters, the shopkeeper rose. He was weary, but his resolve had hardened. Today he would speak to her. No matter how painful, they would face the trial together. He drew a deep breath, and for a fleeting moment it felt as though morning itself had brought the faintest thread of hope. Somewhere, somehow, there might still be a way out. The morning sun spread pale light through the shutters, painting the walls with trembling gold. The shopkeeper stood outside his daughter's room, his hand hovering over the door as if it weighed 100 stones. He could hear her humming softly to herself, arranging jars and sweeping the floor. For a moment he almost turned away. How could he burden her with such cruelty? Yet to remain silent would be worse. He knocked gently. The humming stopped, and her voice came, bright and untroubled. "Father, come in." When he entered, she smiled up at him, her long hair braided loosely over one shoulder. But her smile faltered at the sight of his face, drawn and pale. "What troubles you?" she asked, setting aside the broom. "You look as though you've walked through a storm." He tried to speak lightly, but the words dragged like chains. "There is something I must tell you, something I should have shielded you from. I have carried a burden, and now it has cornered us both." He told her of the debt, of the moneylender's visit, of the foul proposal cloaked in chance. Every detail spilled out, each word a wound he reopened. She listened without interruption, her brow furrowing, her lips pressed into a thin line. When he finished, she rose slowly, walking to the window. She looked out at the garden path where pebbles lay scattered like stars across the earth. "So he means to trap us," she said at last, voice calm but firm, "and you fear there is no way out." He lowered his head. "I would rather lose this shop, even my freedom, than hand you to that man. But if I lose both, we may have nothing left, not even each other." His voice cracked. "I have failed you. I have failed your mother's memory." His hands trembled as he reached for her shoulder. She turned to him, and her eyes shone with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "Do not say you failed me. You gave me life, shelter, and love. But more than that, you taught me to see with clear eyes. If he plays by deceit, then we must play by wit. There is always another road, father, even if men like him would hide it." He blinked at her, startled. "Another road? What road can there be when both stones are black?" His voice rose with despair. She shook her head gently. "You are looking at the game through his rules. What if we do not accept them? What if we make our own rules?" Her words lit a spark in him, though he did not yet understand. He searched her face, so young and yet so unwavering. "You would risk yourself?" he asked. "You would stand before him in the garden?" She nodded. "Better to risk myself with cleverness than to let him believe he holds all the power. He may have filled the bag with shadows, but shadows are weak when faced with light." Silence stretched between them, heavy and yet strangely comforting. For the first time in many nights, the shopkeeper felt the iron grip of despair loosen slightly. He realized that his daughter was not a child anymore. She was a woman with a mind sharper than any blade he owned. Perhaps, just perhaps, her courage could carve open a path he had been too blind to see. He took her hands in his, and though his heart trembled, there was strength in his voice. "Then we shall face him together," he said. "If there is a way out of this snare, you will find it, and whatever comes, we will meet it as one." She smiled faintly, her grip steady. Outside, the wind stirred the pebbles in the garden, as if whispering that fate itself was listening. The morning air was cool when they stepped into the garden. The shopkeeper's hands trembled as he held the wooden gate open, and his daughter walked forward with quiet resolve. The path was carpeted with small stones, white and black scattered together, glimmering in the early light. At the far end, beneath the shade of a leaning oak, the moneylender already waited, a satisfied grin curling his lips. "Ah," he said, drawing the velvet pouch from his coat. "You came. Wise. It spares us all unnecessary complications." His gaze lingered on the daughter, greedy and possessive, before flicking toward the father. "Shall we begin?" The shopkeeper swallowed hard, his voice failing him. But the girl stepped forward, her chin raised. "Show us your fairness," she said. Her tone was steady, though her pulse thudded in her ears. The moneylender smirked. He crouched and plucked 2 pebbles from the ground, both dark, though he held them as though one might be pale. With a flourish, he dropped them into the pouch and tied it shut. Panicked. "One white, one black," he declared, his lie smooth as silk. He extended the pouch toward her. "Draw, and fate will speak." The father's heart clenched. He wanted to cry out, to expose the deceit, but his daughter's eyes flicked to his calm, reassuring. She had a plan, though he could not see it. Slowly, she reached into the pouch. Her fingers brushed the cold, smooth surface of one stone, then another, both identical, both black. She lifted one between her fingers, withdrawing it from the pouch, all eyes fixed upon it. Then, with a sudden gasp, she let it slip. The pebble tumbled from her hand, fell to the ground, and disappeared among the countless others scattered on the path. She clasped her hands to her chest, face a mask of innocent dismay. "Oh, how clumsy of me," she exclaimed, "but it doesn't matter. We can discover which stone I chose by looking at the one left in the pouch." A hush fell. The moneylender's smirk froze. His fingers tightened on the pouch, as though it might burn him. Slowly, with dozens of townsfolk now gathering at the garden's edge to watch, he opened it and revealed the single pebble within. Black. "Then the one I dropped must have been white," the girl said simply, her voice clear as a bell. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The moneylender's lie had trapped him. If he protested, his deceit would be laid bare before all. If he remained silent, he would lose everything he had schemed for. His face twisted, but he could not speak. The father, trembling with awe, saw the crowd's eyes upon the moneylender, saw the power shift in an instant. The daughter's cleverness had turned the trap against its maker. The moneylender's own rules had bound him. He could do nothing but bow to them. With a bitter swallow, the moneylender forced a smile that fooled no one. "So it is," he said hoarsely. "The white stone was chosen. The debt is forgiven." He turned and stalked away, cloak snapping in the wind. The girl slipped her arm through her father's, and the 2 of them stood together beneath the morning sun. The crowd erupted in applause, not just for the girl's wit, but for the courage to think beyond the choices placed before her. Vocabulary with example sentences. Shopkeeper. A person who owns or manages a small store. The shopkeeper greeted every customer with a warm smile. Moneylender. Someone who lends money, often at high interest rates. The old moneylender demanded repayment in a harsh tone. Debt. Money that is owed to another person or institution. He worked day and night to pay off his debt. Pouch, velvet pouch, or small soft bag used to hold small items. She kept her jewelry in a velvet pouch. Pebble, or small smooth stone. Children were skipping pebbles across the lake. Black pebble Mo, symbol of bad outcome in the story. In the tale, the black pebble meant a life of misery. White pebble Mo, symbol of freedom or good outcome. Choosing the white pebble promised hope and liberty. Fate Ro, the idea that events are predetermined. He believed it was fate that brought them together. Chance, game of chance, Ro, an outcome based on luck. They played a simple game of chance with dice. Burden, shown something heavy to carry, literal or emotional. The secret became a heavy burden on his heart. Honor, show a sense of respect or integrity. She defended her family's honor bravely. Legacy drew something handed down from the past. Her grandfather's legacy was a small library of rare books. Desperation, hopelessness, lack of options. In his desperation, he agreed to the unfair terms. Resolve, Renault's strong determination. Her resolve to succeed never wavered. Trap, Ro, a trick or situation with no escape. They walked straight into the enemy's trap. Innocent dismay, harmless surprise or worry. She dropped the glass in innocent dismay. Crowd, townsfolk, a group of people, residents of a town. The townsfolk gathered in a crowd to watch the event. Applause, Ro, clapping, as a sign of approval. The actor bowed as the audience gave loud applause. To expose, Ro, to reveal something hidden. The journalist worked hard to expose the truth. To whisper, to speak very softly. He whispered the secret so only she could hear. To tremble, to shake slightly. Her hands began to tremble as she opened the letter. To clutch, to hold tightly. The child clutched his mother's hand in fear. To bow, to bend forward in respect. The knight bowed before the queen. To stalk away, to walk away angrily or stiffly. He stalked away after losing the argument.